Hello everyone, Rob here for another State of the Dungeon address for my 5th edition D&D campaign. If you're curious about the backdrop, it's because my cat likes it that way. So we just have to deal with it. So, when we started the action, things were already underway. The group was in a battle with the elemental prophet of Earth, Marlos Ernrail. Marlos decided to start out the drama by vanishing from sight for about 2 weeks, until just a couple hours before game time. The character that I had mostly painted was ready to go for game time. He was flanked by a still surviving Earth Myrmidon to block off Antaeus the Paladin. The Burrow Shark and his Boule steed were dueling mano a mano with Auric. It was Donlud and Oriana who were taking on a huge Earth Elemental underneath the sway of Marlos. And there were a few gargoyles flying around who had been somewhat injured by an early shatter spell. Saphisha, the sorceress for hire, was off taking a powder because she had been badly injured by the gargoyles. So that was how things opened up. Antaeus basically put down the Earth Myrmidon quickly. It didn't really stand much of a chance. Auric was having some difficulty with the Burrow Shark because while he was with his steed and both of them were combatants, a lot of his special abilities didn't really work. So he was trying to rely on acids, trying to put them in vulnerable places on the Boule. That wasn't working so well. The combination of the Rider and the Boule were starting to threaten to be too much for Auric to take on by himself. Eventually, Oriana turned around and decided the gargoyles had to go after they raked her a few times with their claws, so she bottled up her ki and used Shatter as one of her monk abilities, granted to her by her most recent present that she has, which took out the gargoyles. She rolled well for damage. Hello. No, not by the camera, please. Yeah, stay away from the camera, thank you. So, with the gargoyles gone, they were left to completely concentrate on the elemental. Brock decided he didn't want anything to do with the elemental, so he fanned out, casting odd spells here and there, attempting a hold person, and just generally supporting everybody. Because the player of Brock wasn't able to be there, he was played by his father, who was another one of the players. So it worked out. Eventually, Geth's player showed up. A little late, but just in time to throw down some helpful magic, which helped to take out the Burrow Shark. And eventually, Marlos realized that he was going to have to take matters into his own hands, so he moved up to fight Antaeus. And Antaeus was up for the fight, except he was badly injured already. Marlos ended up taking him down with a couple of chomps from his snaky hair. The rest of the group realized that they were going to have to deal with Marlos directly because he was regenerating the damage that he had taken as part of his lair actions. He was able to draw forth power like that. So he was healing almost as fast as they could hurt him, but not quite that fast. When the group finally all got together and started raining blows down on him, Oriana moved up to attack. Eventually, Auric freed from the Burrow Shark. Trying to remember how he finished off the Rider.
Rider got stunned.
Oh, that's
or a
right.
whole person.
Yep, the Rider got held, and then the Burrow Shark got basically flipped on top of him. from a devastating blow. So, yeah, that freed Auric up. The problem was Auric didn't want to go toe-to-toe with Marlos very much either, because he was just a little bit too much of a beast for him to bear. True, the snaky hair wasn't nearly as dangerous to Auric, being a dwarf. He was going to take half damage. If Iron Fang, the magical pick for Marlos, actually ever hit, he might have been even more dangerous, but I couldn't hit with it. I rolled nothing but 2s for that pick. Erg. So, the group closed in. Marlos tried kind of breaking away and using hit-and-run tactics. Ultimately, he took a lightning bolt in the chin while he was already pretty heavily damaged, and died, effectively. When he died, he turned to goo. However, following up on his orders, Dunlad, the warlock, moved up and used his collecting dagger to grab his soul really quickly before he could be used to strengthen Ogremok, his patron. And yes, I did say Ogremok, not Olhydra, which I've been frequently misconfusicating. So, the group won. They killed Marlos. Now they had the pick, but all of the forces of the Earth Temple knew that they had to get in to stop them from trying to close the portal. Sophicia had a few walls of ice that she threw down in front of the doorway to buy them some time, while all these boulets and other nasties were breaking through the ice at a fairly frightening rate. Eventually, they kind of puzzled out using their arcane knowledge, mostly from Geth and Brock, that the thing generating the portal was a monolith that Marlos had been standing in front of, beseeching Ogremok to come through. So they whacked it with a pick. Wouldn't you know it, that's what broke the portal. Boom, portal breaks. Instantly, the entire place starts going all earthquakey. All of the forces for the Earth Temple know that the game is up. Portal's done. Ogremok can't come into the world anymore. Time to leave. So all of them start trying to leave. The downside for the players is, while the Black Geode is starting to come to pieces, they're walled in by walls of ice. Fortunately, they had been chewed through pretty well, so once they got Antaeus up, he turned on his Divine Radiance ability and just started kind of walking through the ice, eventually clearing a hole enough big enough the group could get through. When the group got to the next chamber, the Cathedral of Stone, they saw a black earth priest with a badly broken leg who was trampled by all of these earth creatures trying to get out as quickly as they could. So they picked him up, basically interrogated him, and he's like, the way you came in was the fastest way for you. That way you won't have to deal with the bridge and the bottlenecking there. And they're like, fine, we're out of here. So basically they ran out of the temple the way they came in, avoiding any kind of real entanglements, just basically cutting down a few rogue cultists as they went, nothing too serious. Eventually they got to the... again, with the Black Earth Priest's guidance, they found their way back up to the Fane of the Eye and to the spire that, with the stairs around it, that would lead them up to the Earth Temple. Because on Marlos, after they looted him, they got Iron Fang, and they found a big key. But they hadn't found the chest for the key, so they wanted to go up and find his personal quarters. As they got out of the Black Geode and everything, the trembling stopped, everything was cool, and they also noticed that the evil power that had been radiating had come to a decisive end. So that worked out for them fairly well. Their next stop was to get up to the Earth Temple. Going all the way up, eventually they found themselves in the lowest part of the Earth Temple itself. They found a deep gnome who was chained up to a wall, who was kind of in a bit of a bad way. They freed her only after they found out that she was chained there apparently to be sacrificed or fed to a black pudding, which, if you're not used to D&D, is kind of a nasty horror, somewhat mindless and always hungry ooze that can dissolve just about anything. And they basically scared it away. The ooze is intelligent enough to know that just by being there it was going to die, so eventually, after they nailed it with a variety of magics, it turned around and left. So they freed her. They had freed the dwarf, the leader of the caravan that originally had set out all the beginning of this campaign, and got up to the upper layers, which they found the bedroom. It was a secureable location, so they were able to take a long rest. Marlos had a nice big bed. They sacked out. They had their full rest. Everybody got all their abilities back up to full hit points, and they felt so good after that. They were so happy. But of course they looted. They found a few nice trinkets that Marlos had lying around. Also some money. So, they were doing fairly well for themselves. They went up out of his room, and they realized that they never really had been through all of the Earth Temple. They penetrated down and basically struck right at the heart, so they ran against Marlos in that first ill-fated meeting with him that cost them several of their party members. This time, as they were going out, everything was gone. Everybody had cleared out of the Earth Temple. It has been completely abandoned by the forces of the cultists. So as they were going up, they moved up to the Sacred Stone Monastery, which was the cover location, which originally was one of those fortresses that the forces of good built over the old temples of elemental evil. And they ran into the resistance. Their friends that they had liberated from the mines and servitude to the Earth Cult, led by Magnus, the psychic Cyclops. And they were reunited with Magnus, who was happy to see them. He was happy to find out that they had stopped the Earth Cult cold and permanently. He was a little regretful he wasn't able to be there personally to help kill Marlos, but he understood it wasn't his place. And he decided that the next thing is to go and kill water cultists, because they're the next biggest threat. They still have their prophet, and they're probably getting fairly close to summoning their god and doing all kinds of horrible things. So, that is certainly their next plan. So, the group kind of took a little bit of a break when Auric decided he was going to go back and talk to the Lich that was living in a small corner of the Sacred Stone Monastery. He was not an evil Lich. They had a positive encounter with him earlier. He wasn't exceptionally helpful to them, although he did train their GM NPC Glob Knobscrape way back when. Still get requests for Globby to come back to the party every now and again, but they have enough people as it is. Especially since they already have a wizard, and 2 wizards in the party is just overkill. So, they talked to him, and he said that he understood that the temple's portal had been closed. He sensed the change in the magic, so that this place wasn't as ideal for him to continue his studies, since there wasn't as much ambient magic around with the portal. So instead, they told him about the magical crystal that they found in the old ruins of Besselmer that contained much of the mystical knowledge of the dwarves. That's a little bit like leaving vials of drugs around for an addict to find. He just kind of perked right up, as much as he had been in probably several hundred years. And it's like, so, can you tell me where that is? And while Auric wasn't able to give him, coordinates or anything that he could use, he just pulled it out of his mind with Auric's permission. This Lich is a fairly nice guy. His name is Renwick. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to move, because there's really not a lot holding me here. And for all intents and purposes, this is not a bad place for what they intended it for. So somebody probably will end up setting up either a hermit's cloister or maybe another monk's monastery or something like that. considering they have a monk in the party, somebody in the party might be interested in starting up a small monastery here to help their order grow and such. And considering that she's of the elemental variety, there is a great deal of elemental stone around to inspire monks for endurance and toughness. This, again, even though the earth elemental cult had kind of perverted it, this is a pretty good spot for something like that. So, the Lich said, all right, well, I'm going to move. I've got some things that I don't want to have to tote around, so I'll give you a couple of things to go on, which have not been disclosed to the party yet because they were doing some negotiations. The major thing was, Renwick's last concern was his brother, who was a paladin who was a follower of Hieronius, is buried in the vaults under Summit Hall. Renwick would like to go and pay his respects to his brother. The difficulty is he's undead. Something about paladins and undead didn't get along very well. So basically, Renwick's challenge to the party was, if you can get me clearance to go in and pay my respects to my brother, let them know that I'm not evil and I'm not kill on sight, I would appreciate it greatly. And while Antaeus is not pleased with the arrangement, he doesn't want to have to put himself in that position where he's championing the cause of an undead abomination. And he has no prior with Renwick. He just knows he is what he is. Even if he appears to just be an old man, he knows what he is. He knows he's a lich. Auric told him as much. I mean, there's no sweeping it under the rug, and honestly, that's really not how Renwick is. He just changes his appearance because it makes people less uncomfortable than if he appeared to be a rotting corpse walking around. Actually, he's not even rotting anymore. But anyhow, Antaeus agreed to try to help him out, so that made Renwick happy, which means that when we pick up again next time, the finale of that will carry forward. But the most important thing is... Oh, where did you go? He hides so well, you know. One prophet gone. That adds him to Vanifer and Arisi, so there's 3 gone, 1 left. It's now a race to see if they can get to Gar Shatterkeel, prophet of earth, or prophet of water, before he has the time to summon Hydra. It'll be interesting. They haven't been to his temple, at least not with this group. The last group, of course, total party wiped against Gar Shatterkeel, so this will be a measure of revenge as well. But it's not likely that they'll find him in his temple. He's probably gone to his elemental node as well, so the party knows as much. So it will be a fight in the bowels of the water node next time they get to fight the final prophet, hopefully putting an end to the overall threats of the cult. Or if they decide to close the other nodes, they could do that too. They have the right weapons for it. So that is what happened, and that was on the night of May 30th. So we will be moving forward from there. Thanks for joining us, and stay tuned next time when, well, they probably, after all this dungeoning, do a little bit of a rest to take care of some of the things they need to do. Depends on the amount of urgency they're feeling, so we'll see how it goes. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.